we getting 7 and negative 2? Which one of those answers do we want to use? 7. Why don't we want to use negative 2? Okay, so here's something we need to be specific on. I sat in a conference one time and we were talking about how we should answer and respond to things. And one of them was a sample I-step question. And on the sample I-step question, they put down, a student response was, you would have to pick the 7 because the 2 is negative. And I was like, oh, sweet, the student knows what they're doing. And they're like, yeah, they didn't get full points on that. I was like, what? Okay, because the student actually needed to clarify that you can't use a negative because distance can't be negative. Right, so we can't pick the negative here because we're talking about distance, and distance can't be negative. So we want 7. What is 7 now going to equal? What does that 7 represent? Length. So how are we going to find our width? Okay, so our length is now 7. In this case, what? 7 centimeters? Okay, we'll plug it in here. So we'll say 3 times 7 is 21. 21 minus 15 is 6. So our width will be 6 centimeters. Okay, so do we see how this really isn't different than anything we've been doing? It's just taking that idea of what we did with perimeter and applying it to now solving a quadratic. I mean, they're definitely not short. Okay, they definitely take time, but it's not a whole lot of new information. Okay, are we okay on that one? Then we need to talk about one more idea here of something that can happen. I want you to skip to number 4. Okay, so this says define the dimensions of a rectangle whose width is 2 feet longer than its length. What are we going to define first? Width. So our width is going to equal W. Okay, our length is going to be 2 feet longer. So how are we going to represent 2 feet longer than its... Oh, why are we doing width first, guys? Why am I believing you? We don't want to do width first. What do we want to do first? Length. Let's try that again. Sorry, guys. Length is second. Length is L. Width is 2 feet longer, so it's L plus 2. You could write it as 2 plus L. Guys, you could go the other way. You just have to say that width is W, and then your length would have to be W minus 2. Right? You'd have to reverse that concept. Okay, so now we're going to find the area, which hopefully at this point we're kind of like, okay, yeah, I want to multiply those two things. So I'm going to say L times L plus 2 equals 60. So we'll distribute. How do we want to solve this one? Completing a square? You could totally use the quadratic formula on this problem, guys. You could set it equal to 0 and quadratic formula all you want. I'm just gonna choose completing the square so that we sort of keep the different options in our brain. Okay, if you want to start doing quadratic formula, you can. You're just going to have to make sure you pay attention to the different step here at the end.
You're not factoring.
This is not factorable. Okay, so B is 2. Half of that is 1. Squared is 1. So we're gonna, bless you. So we're gonna add 1 to each side. So we'll get L plus 1 squared equals 61. Then we're gonna square root each side. So L plus 1 is plus or minus the square root of 61. Can we take the square root of 61? No. And that now provides us with an interesting dilemma. Because if I want to tell you the length of something, right, we are ready for a final answer. I can't go to Lowe's and say, hey, will you please cut this board at a length of plus or minus the square root of 61 minus 1? What are they going to do? Like laugh at me or think I'm a crazy person? That is not how we talk about a measurement. Right? This isn't a reasonable idea of a measurement. We're at the point that we are ready for a label. We are done. We are not doing anything else with this. Right? So now is an appropriate time to approximate. Very similar to when we were doing story problems first trimester, right? If we got a fraction and we were talking about money, even if it was a repeating decimal, we had to round it and approximate because that's how we talk about money. Okay, so that means you're now going to have to pick up your calculator and you're going to have to take the square root of 61. And this is approximately 7.81. I want you to round to 2 decimal points. Okay, so we'll have plus or minus 7.81 minus 1. And then we'll calculate both options. So a positive 7.81 minus 1 is a 6.81. And a negative 7.81 minus 1 is a negative 8.81. Because you don't have to calculate both if you know that you're looking for a positive and a negative, and the negative one is, like, you've already found positive. Yes, Kate?
Up top, how'd you get L plus 1?
Right, so I'm factoring this, and I always factor it into the middle piece when I'm completing the square. So here's my L plus 1 squared. Okay, so which one of these answers am I going to use? 6.8. So that tells me that my length is 6.81 feet. What is my width going to be? 8.81 feet. Right? 6.81 plus 2. Class, this happens sometimes that it's the positive version of it, but not all the time. So always make sure you're plugging it back in and just checking to make sure.